Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this week's weekly parenting show on Inspire 105.1 FM. Your host today is myself, Sister Naveed, and joining me for today's show are Sister Shabina and Sister Fazila. Assalamu alaikum to both of you.
Walaikum
Welcome,
salam.
salam.
It's been a while. It's a
It
pleasure to
has.
have you both back.
Thank you.
How are you, Shabina? It's been a longer while with you. How have you been?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, I've been good. I've rested.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, good. It's good to be
Yeah,
back.
work good.
Yeah,
Teaching.
alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. And how are you, Fazila? You okay?
Alhamdulillah, I'm okay. Not rested, but yeah.
Some of us are never rested. Seriously,
No.
it's just subhanAllah. It's just life. It's back to back.
It is.
Okay, without any further delay, I just want to remind the listeners that you can contribute with topics to the parenting show. You can leave us messages with Inspire FM on 07779 481822. Your comments, your feedback, your questions, your suggestions will all be fed back to us, and we do appreciate your interaction with us. I also want to remind the listeners that you can listen back to the show on certain social media platforms and the Inspire FM website page. You can also request shows done previously if there's any particular shows that you want to listen to again, and do feel free to like and share the shows with other people around you as well. Shabina and Fazila, today's topic, I chose it to be social media and its vulnerabilities. It's a topic we've, especially you two and me, we've covered over the years so many times. We've looked at this from so many angles and perspectives and the vulnerabilities that are out there. This is, for me, as a new topic for today's show, has actually stemmed from the idea of this new AI grok generated piece of technology that has been created, and something that is creating a lot of controversy and a lot of concern and worry in the media about its use, about how certain things can be used on the app that can allow the undressing of certain photographs that are shared on social media platforms. So it has been known and has been referred to as an app that can lead to the whole AI grok system can lead to sexual material of abuse, sexual abuse material being generated. The target is mainly young women or young girls, and then what that can lead to further in terms of cyberbullying or blackmailing, and the rest of it that can stem from there, the discrediting, the tarnishing of people's reputation, and so on and so forth. And apparently, the app is so good at generating these pictures that are fake that they look very real. So to prove the fact that it's a fake and not a real can be impossible for some people. Obviously, it trickles down into mainstream society. You have the youth that will probably find it funny, or that will use it as a form of revenge for others that they don't like, to show them up, or to create problems, or to have their laugh with their friends, which might go too far, and what might be a laugh for one person may not be for the other, and so on and so forth. Then you've got the Australian ban that's come into effect in December for the under 16-year-olds. They've banned, I think it said in the news, 12 platforms such as TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Threads, and Reddit, and so on and so forth. And they conducted a study in 2020 which found that 96% of kids aged between 10 and 15 were using the social media platform. They reported that 7 out of 10 were exposed to harmful content, such as misogynistic or violent material, or content about eating disorders and suicide and cyberbullying and so on and so forth. 1 out of 7 children reported experiencing grooming type behavior from adults or older children. And as I said, over half of them have been victims of cyberbullying of some form, to some level, to some extent. So they've introduced this ban. And now they're encouraging other nations to follow suit because, of course, they want to enforce this around the globe for everybody to follow suit. The rest of the world is watching very closely, and certain parts of Europe, Denmark, France, a few other countries, and Britain and Malaysia, and I think even Indonesia, are looking very closely and following this very closely with Australia to see how effective the social media ban for under 16-year-olds is actually going to be, and how they can take this on for their nations and the youth of their nations. So you could say a glimmer of hope that at least on a nation level, we have countries that are recognizing that, this is an important factor. We've been talking about it on the radio for so long, and so have so many other, mediums out there around the world and in the UK. From an Islamic perspective, we talk about this as well and how dangerous it is. What are your initial thoughts when you think about the vulnerabilities of the youth and how it can spiral out of control, or your views on this social media ban that Australia has introduced? Fazila, do you want to go
Why me always?
first? Out of
Um,
respect.
um, gosh, do you know, like you said, it's a topic that we do quite often, sort of on a
Yeah.
regular, at least a few times a year, if not more. And every
Mm,
time we do it, it's with a heavy heart, and
mm,
it's with the same seriousness, and it's like, it's not a repeat, if that makes sense. It's still
yeah.
relevant, and it's still affecting our youth. And I think, I don't know, like you're talking about the Australian ban, and I think if it's come to that the governments are banning it,
Mm,
that means it's a lot worse than we actually know.
that's true.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I think because for them to create these things, I know now it's Grok or even these other apps, Snapchat, whatever social media there is there, for them to allow it to be created and allowed to be used in the first instance,
Mm,
they think it's okay, even
mm,
though the dangers were there originally.
mm,
Um, and I just feel we're not really aware. And I think for
yeah.
them now, for on a state level, to say we're banning this, up
Mm,
to 16-year-olds, I think it's really really bad, and we have no idea how bad it is. And I think, and we've said this many times before, that we think it's not going to happen to our children.
mm,
We're quite present parents, for example, or we're
mm.
really with it when it comes to social media. Not that I am, but like the parents out there might
We
think that
try
we're,
to be. Mm,
yeah, and I'm sure lots of parents that are out there probably think that we're quite savvy with this new technology.
technology.
Yeah,
Mm,
whereas somebody like me won't have a clue where to start. We just know the basics, for
mm,
example. But even
mm.
their children are vulnerable,
Yeah,
and it's quite scary, really. I mean,
it is.
mine are older, and I'm worried.
Yeah.
And I look at my nieces and nephews who are a lot younger, and I think, gosh, how do
There's
we
a whole
protect
world
them?
ahead of them, yeah.
Yeah,
And
how do we
yeah,
protect them? Like you're
yeah.
giving that statistic of 96% you are on social media at that age, or like
Over
there's no,
half are victims of cyberbullying. So
yeah,
yeah,
and there's no running away from it. But what do we
no.
do as parents now to kind of counteract that, or trying to or put things in place to deal with these things? And I'm sure we'll
Mm,
discuss this during the show.
yeah, inshallah. What are your thoughts, Shabina?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a positive that a country has recognized it and has banned it. But like you said, we don't know how bad it is. I mean,
Mm,
we do this show every few times a year. And in
mm,
that few times a year, we are hearing as parents more stories amongst ourselves, more
yeah,
stories that are coming up, more problems that are coming up through
yeah,
social media because of social media. And what you
yeah,
were saying about the Grok AI, I remembered something actually.
yeah.
One of my relatives in Bangladesh, she took a photo of my sister's profile, and
Mm.
my sister was in hijab, and then she used some sort of AI and
Okay.
changed the photo and put her in not hijab and
Oh,
sent it to us, right?
yeah.
And we got a little bit shocked by that. We're like, why have you done that? She thought it was funny,
Mm,
and we took it like really offensively. We're like, no, delete that right now. We don't want anyone seeing a photo of us
yeah,
without hijab
yeah,
like that, even if it's AI. It looks very real.
yeah,
And I just thought, if that happened to our children, they would
yeah,
be traumatized.
yeah.
They would be
Yeah.
traumatized. Like images that are being made through AI, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
find that really scary. Obviously, we're adults, and we can, we can just say, "Hey, delete that," you know.
Yeah.
But
We can
as
have the confidence of saying that. We can
yeah,
have the life experience of maybe nipping that in the bud and
yeah,
knowing that I'm going to deal with that right now. We can understand the offense of the fact that you have just removed a hijab, and this is something that is disgusting for my
yeah,
belief. And we may not have the fear that the youth may have, as a 15-year-old could have, a 16-year-old could have, even an 18, 19, 21-year-old could have, that
yeah,
can just find herself in a situation that was created as a joke,
yeah,
as a something to laugh about.
yeah,
But then, because the other party, if we remove it from the fact that your cousin did this for a second, if that happens to a young lady or a
mm,
young person, that sensitivity of, oh my God, my reputation, or what are people going to think of me, or what's going to happen with this, and how is it going to happen, and how do I convince people that this is fake and it's not real, and so on and so forth. That could amalgamate where the other party could think, oh, actually, I've hit a nerve. I've actually struck gold. I can actually now continue to bully this
yeah,
person or even lead on to blackmailing.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and where does it stop?
Mm,
And how much is a bit of fun, a bit of fun? I mean, I remember my eldest, he was a few years ago, I think they call it catfishing, when you pretend to have we have a fake profile, and you create either well, it's usually done for a romantic or a financial distress or a loss, or whatever, to create that within the channel. And a few boys that knew him, that weren't even at his sixth form, they were in a different college, they thought it'd be funny to do that to him, because they were on a social media platform as a group together. So
mm,
they, a few of them just decided to do it to my elder child, and he came up to me. I remember he was about 17, and he was like, Mom, look, oh my God, I don't even know who this girl is. I don't know what she's talking about, but she's saying, I've done this, I've done that, I've done the other. And I remember I was like, Amar, are you sure? Has something happened or anything? I was like, no. And then another friend came on one to one and said, ignore it. It's so and so catfishing you. There's a group of them that think it's funny. And so he came out of that situation quite successfully, and we totally forgot about it. But the situation and the reality is that that's not the case for some people, or for
mm,
some youth. I mean, even your relationship with your relative in Bangladesh could have
mm,
gone south. It could have gone really bitter,
yeah,
and gone cold. So it's a mentality issue, isn't it? So I
yeah,
think on the one hand we have the ban, in Australia, I'd also like to add that the fine is to the companies and not to the parents. So it's not the parents that are going to get into trouble if young youth are found using the social media platforms, but the companies that provide this service are the ones that are going to be fined for the fact that kids and anyone under the age of 16 was on that platform. So Australia is pretty serious about this, because they put the onus on the companies that provide these platforms rather than the parents, to
mm,
ensure that their children are not on this platform. So there's a seriousness behind it, because like what Fazila is saying, that it must be really bad out there, although we see in our community and society situations and scenarios unfold
mm,
that are unfortunate, that take place. And once these situations and realities are there, whether it's AI grok generated photos that are fake, or conversations that are fake, that are created, or whatever it is, it can never be verified, and no can you then go out and verify that. So there's a certain onus of morals and ethics and values that has to be existent within households. There's one thing protecting our youth from being vulnerable to these devices. There's another thing about how do we teach our youth or prepare our youth, because if you ask me, even if a 16 or a 17-year-old goes on these social media platforms, they're still not safe. They still need to learn how to use these devices and systems, these powerful, smart pieces of technology that are so small but are so powerful in their hands, how to use it wisely. So how do we create that within our youth? How do we generate that? What's the other side of this? And how successfully can we do that? Maybe. What are your thoughts?
I think there's like, I think there's two aspects that we have to deal with. The first aspect of is trying to teach our children of how to use d- uh, these social media sites safely, or even if we should use them or not. Like for them
Mm,
to question it, that is there a need to be on Snapchat, for example? Like why are we using it? What is the purpose of using it? Like for example, the internet has many benefits. We use it for good, but then it can be used for bad as well. So I think
mm,
we need to start questioning of why, and it goes back, and I know we talk about this, it goes back to the very basics of why we even do any action. And I think and I feel that the youth and parents, not just the youth, I think we become a bit zombified. We don't question why we do things. If we're
yeah,
sat there on TikTok, for example, as adults, scrolling away for, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours, why are we doing that? If it's to gain knowledge, for example, or we're researching a certain thing, that's you've got a purpose to it. If you're just doing
mm,
it to waste time, do you see? So I think even so, we have to start questioning of why we're doing things. We have to go back to the basics with our children, I think, and ourselves. And then I think these things won't be used as much. I do
yeah,
feel if there's no purpose behind it, it won't be. The other aspect, which I think we also lack in, is that say if our child or children use these things properly and they still become victims of these attacks, or even if they don't use it properly, let's for example, they become victims, how then do they deal with it? Because I feel that our youth crumble,
mm,
they become fragile, they hide away. Some will come to their parents and say, this has
yeah,
happened to me, but they're not their confidence will be knocked. They will
mm,
become a bit paranoid of what's going to happen to them, may or may not happen to them, and they become quite vulnerable in that
mm,
sense. Others may not tell their parents or come to a responsible adult, for example, and try and deal with it in different ways, and that brings its own consequences as well. And I think, I'm sure we all know of cases, but I think the purpose of these attacks is either to slander that person or humiliate them or both.
yeah,
And I think I think me and you were talking about the other day that I think we forget this, we forget the Sira, we forget the life of our prophets of some because that's an example for us, but we see it as a story. We don't link back our life
yeah,
to that life or to their life, sorry. And if you think about it, in Mecca, for example, during that period, how many times was Prophet Muhammad slandered?
that's it. Mm,
How
mm,
much abuse did they get? And we all know the example of the rubbish being thrown on them, for example. But what
mm,
about when they were called a magician or,
yeah, a
all
madman,
sorts, a
now
madman,
billah.
and
Yeah,
yeah, and and they persevered in those tests and trials,
mm,
and they came out, in that way. And but when our children go through these, and it doesn't have to be social media, I know we're discussing that today, but it could be it could be physical bullying, for example, or physical
yeah,
name calling
yeah,
in schools, or in families you get, even as adults we get slandered in families, for example. Or and how do we deal with that? Do we shy away from the slander? Do we become insecure, or do we persevere, like Prophet Muhammad SAW? Do we take that example and actually implement it in our lives? And I think we need to start, and we've talked about this before, that it's very, our generation, the future generations become quite weak in that way. That when a
yeah,
problem arises, there are some who deal with it correctly, but generally speaking, I think that we can't face problems. We think, why is there hardship? And I think, and we fail at the first instance, that we can't move forward. And I think
mm,
we were talking about the other day, and maybe we can discuss this further, that we don't have the expectation to face hardship, whereas Allah tells us that we are going to face it. He's going to test us with our money. He's going to test us with our rizq, test us with our children, test us with our status in society. We're going to be Allah's telling us that He's going to put us through these things. But but when we
mm,
when the youth, or even ourselves, come when we face these things, we think, why is it happening? But Allah's warned us,
yeah,
Allah's told us. So we should expect the hardship, and we should be ready to face anything that comes our way, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm
A
rambling
lot of
on.
no, you're not at all. Jazakallah khair. There's so many points that you've raised there to provoke the thought in the listeners and as well as them, us. Shavina, what were you thinking?
Um, yeah, I mean, I was thinking, I like what you said, worry about what Allah thinks.
Mm,
And I think that's so powerful. If we worry about what our friends are thinking or what society is thinking, we are going to crumble. And I think
Mm,
that's a really like powerful concept to drill into our kids as much as we can. Because
mm,
when problems occur, when they come up and they're, something's happened amongst their friends or on social media or something's happened and they're feeling uneasy about it, we should
mm,
question, okay, why do you think you're feeling uneasy? This
Mm-hmm.
person
mm,
thinks this or that person thinks this. Okay, have you done anything wrong?
mm.
If you have or if you haven't, have you
Yeah.
repented to Allah? Do you need to
Yes.
repent to Allah?
Yeah.
And then ask, okay, if you haven't done anything wrong, then why
Yes.
worry about what people are going to say?
Mm, mm.
Um, yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And I think that gives the confidence, isn't it, Shabina? I think
Yeah,
when they, if a child hasn't done anything wrong, for example, then they should be confident that, okay, I'm going through this time where I'm being made, for example, being bullied or name called or whatever it is,
Or
um,
slandered. Yeah.
or slandered, yeah. But I've not done anything wrong. They should have that trust in Allah that yes, this is happening, but inshallah it'll get better soon, and I can deal
Yeah.
with it. But I think we don't
Yeah.
have that. I feel that our children don't have that. And the other option, like what you're saying, is when if they have done something wrong, because we all
Yes.
make mistakes,
Yeah.
then they should know that you repent to Allah,
Yeah. There should
recognize
be a
that mistake.
process as
Yeah,
parents and guardians that you can
yeah,
take your children through.
that
Um,
accountability of
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, of making tawbah, of forgiveness, and how Allah is most forgiving. And if Allah forgives, and even if the whole world has found out because
Mm,
somebody has decided to expose it, then that's fine. That's, there's a sense of accountability for the person that has exposed this child. But at the same time, for this child, it's a case of if Allah is most forgiving, it doesn't matter what the world thinks of you. On the other hand, as you're saying, Shabina, and yourself, Fazila, just echoing what both of you are saying, if you haven't done anything of such, and somebody has gone out to tarnish you or your reputation or whatever matters to you the most, and therefore they're spreading slander about you and it's gone viral on social media and those platforms, then you need to continue to trust in Allah, have confidence, and hold your head high. Now, the youth won't be able to do that all by themselves because they've
no.
never been in this situation before. We can sit here on this medium today and
yeah,
talk about it as women in our late 30s or 40s because we have a whole life experience behind us where things may have been said about us, done to us, where we've had to become stronger, we've had to strengthen our iman, we've had to soldier on about things that we would have naturally thought I'd be embarrassed if I was
mm,
associated with anything like this, or if this had happened or that had happened, or slanders could have been made about us, or whatever. Anything could have happened. And through that life experience, we've gained closeness to Allah. We've gained strength in our iman. We have left affairs that were probably needing to be resolved, and the old you may have thought, I'm never going to let anything like this be left undone about me, because it's unjust and it's unfair. And we've learned that sometimes you don't get justice in the dunya, so you account to
No.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you jog on, you carry on with your life confidently with your head held high. But however, the youth need to learn this. So the first point of call for that, as you've touched upon these points so beautiful, Fazila, is the fact that it's the parents. And the parents, out of many points that you raised, for this one in particular, is about the fact that when your child has been made a victim or made vulnerable, or let's say even your child is the perpetrator, your child is the troublemaker, your youth, your 18-year-old, your 21-year-old, your 15-year-old, and how do you then as a parent view this or as a guardian view this, and how do you support your child, your youth through this situation that they have now found themselves in? How do you take them on that journey? And it's really important that as parents we listen, as parents
Mm,
we hear, as parents we're approachable. We might not make the best decisions even if your child comes to you with that issue of their vulnerability of whatever has happened. Your choices and decisions might not be the best decisions. It might be your first time that you're going through a
mm,
situation like this and a reality like this. But knowing that they have your support or you are there for them is
mm,
very, very crucial. It's very, very sad if the youth out there feel that the last person they can go to is their parent or their guardian. Then that is alarm bells, and that is something that we need to investigate. It could just be a culture that, oh, you're a baby, you're going to your parents, or you're not, man enough or grown up enough or woman enough to be able to deal with these things yourself, and you should be able to, because social media and a culture of society is always, as we say, a big teacher. And if we are trying to fight this as a pocket within the community and say this is wrong, this is incorrect, we're going to have to fight harder. Whereas previously, when Islam existed as an entity and as a system, it was easier to nurture the values of forgiveness and kindness, and the understanding of how slander and backbiting and these criminal acts are so severe and bad, and they shouldn't be done, because it was a universal message. But now we see that it's more rampant in the societies that we live in,
And also,
and more difficult. Go on. Yeah.
also, I think, I think before there was a time where you could verify things quite easily of what is right,
Yeah.
of what is true or not true. And I
Yeah.
think that the onus on
Oh,
us to
I'm
listen
so sorry,
more.
Fazila. You're going to have to pause there. We've gone into a break. We'll be back straight after, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the second half of tonight's parenting show on Inspire FM 105.1 FM. The topic for tonight is social media and its vulnerabilities. Your host is myself, Sister Navid, and joining me for tonight's show are Sister Fazilat and Sister Shabina. You can contact us, you can leave us any feedback, you can make any further suggestions for future shows on 0777948182. Our show should be available on many platforms such as Facebook and the Inspire FM website, where you can listen back to the show, you can share the show with others, and please do feel free to like the show and to leave any comments if you feel that you would like to do so. The topic, as I said, is social media and its vulnerabilities, and we've based it around the whole reality of Australia and its ban of the social media platform for under 16-year-olds. But the question is still there about how do we navigate our youth through this, and if they are found or are finding themselves in situations of vulnerability, how as parents and guardians should we be supportive towards them, and what kind of values and ethics and morals do we need to instill in our youth, especially as Muslims? And I say especially as Muslims because Islam has high standards about keeping the honor of your fellow Muslim and protecting the honor of your fellow Muslim, and other people, and the people at large, within a community and society. Not lying, not creating deceptive material, and a moral compass that stands high in terms of the fear of Allah. So before you become the perpetrator, or even if you become the victim, there are certain principles in Islam that we have as human beings, not just as Muslims, but as human beings, about how we should use these mediums and how we should respect and treat each other. So how do we create that? How do we do that? And we went over in time, Shabina and Fazilat. You were going to speak, Fazilat, and I'll come straight back to you because we were so passionately involved in the discussion. So over to you, Fazilat.
No, I was just saying that I think the fact that we started off with our discussion about Grok and how they take pictures and put people in compromising,
Yeah.
situations. I think we're in a time at the moment where we can't really verify the truth that easily. So if a child does come to us, we need to, like you're saying, have that ability to listen and sift through stuff and see what's actually happening, not be on, or if somebody else has approached us, for example, and said, we've seen a picture of your child, or we've seen this about your child, not be on the attack mode. They may be in the wrong.
Yes.
They may be in the wrong, but I think initially we have to see what's going on, and if they're in the wrong, then you try and deal with it in the
Yes.
correct way to bring them out of that, for example, and for them to acknowledge their mistakes. And if they're not in the wrong, again, to try and deal with them accordingly. But I think it is important that we do listen and take on board what they're saying.
And I think it's really important for the guardians and the parents, the ones that aren't probably listening, are the ones that probably do need to listen, because what we find in our community and society is the fact that, to a certain degree, in some way, if as parents and guardians we're justifying the use of using these mediums to spread slander about, I don't know, our in-laws or our friends or neighbors that we don't like, well, even if it's gossip, then our youth are going to follow suit but do it bigger and do it worse. And therefore, we need to have certain values that we have, like you said, Fazila, right at the beginning. What is the purpose of using the platform that you're using? Why are we going onto it? Is it just because everybody has it? If everybody has Snap, I must have Snap. If everybody has TikTok, I must have TikTok. Why are we on this platform? What is the need for it? How is it being used? And is my child or at the right age of using it? Or even for myself, is it something I need? And time is an amana. It belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How connected are we in that respect about how much use we have out of it and how much use our youth have out of it? Yes, the youth don't listen at times as well. It's that wonderful age of your life where you're transitioning into adulthood and you think you know better than your parents. And there might be parents listening out there thinking, you don't know how hard it is, how much we try to protect our youth from these vulnerable platforms, but they don't listen. And then they find themselves in sticky situations, and it's just unfortunate, but we don't have a choice. So, but one thing I want to say to those parents and guardians is that the efforts have to continue. You can never be off duty when you're a parent. It doesn't matter. Like we always say on our shows, my parents are in their 80s and 90s, and they still are ready to correct us, tell us what's right and what's wrong, and to have those conversations with us. And we're in our 40s and 50s, so parenting never ends. It never ended for the Sahaba and the Sahabiyat. We see that in their examples about Asma radiallahu anhu advising Abdullah ibn Zubair in his late 70s, and she's in her 90s, and so on. And it makes you realize that, hang on a second, when it comes to parenting, it's for life, it's a lifelong commitment. So we should never give up on our youth. We should always be positive. We should always be hopeful. And we should always try different avenues. It might be that you need a friend to speak to them. It might be that, you need somebody who's a professional to speak to them. Whatever it might be, whatever, you might need to change their environment. And whatever it requires for them to understand about how they must behave and how they must deal with and how they must trust you. And then being approachable is so important as well in this situation and reality. The fact is that these platforms are dangerous, and they are places that our youth are most vulnerable. And we have to imagine that, because they're not leaving your door, they're not going out, they might be in their bedroom on the device, but they're making themselves vulnerable, or they are being caught up in a situation that is just spiraling downwards, and they need that support and help to come out of that, inshallah. What are your thoughts, Shabina?
Lots of things. I was thinking
Good
about my own.
start sharing.
I was thinking about my own parenting,
Mm-hmm.
and so with my eldest, I'm quite close with her, and she approaches me with any sort of problems, alhamdulillah, and we can deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But my middle child is not approaching me. She is not approaching me. So recently we had a little, and this is like a lesson for myself. Recently she was involved in some sort of drama with her friendship group.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't necessarily open up to me.
Yeah.
And I noticed that she's opening up to her cousin, who is older.
Okay.
She's an adult, practicing. Very good role model for
good
her.
Influence.
Yeah, good influence on her. But she's opening up to her, and she's not opening up to me. So in this situation, I've sort of allowed it. I've allowed, and I've guided my niece, so to say, to assist my daughter and have those conversations with my daughter with whatever drama she had. But it's a lesson for me, because I feel like I'm not approachable as a parent then for my second child.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like that's something that I need to think about, and I need to think about how I'm going to build that. And I think that goes for all parents. We're all going to have issues with ourselves and our children, and we do need to assess our own relationship with them.
Why do you think you're not approachable to your second child in comparison to the other one? Is it because you think your number one is similar to you in character, but number two might not be? So
maybe that. Also, I think she thinks I'm too old.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that part
Yes.
like plays.
Yes.
Whereby with my eldest, we're more like friends. She, it's I can talk to her. But with my second one, I think she just thinks I'm too old for her.
Not much of
Old
an
to
age gap between your
understand.
1 and 2, though, is there? There's only a
No,
couple of
there
years
isn't.
age gap.
There isn't. But
So
there's
there's a difference in her mentality in
yes,
comparison to child number one's mentality
yes.
I
in
was gonna
terms of
say, yeah.
you, which is
Yeah.
interesting. We're going to come to this. Go carry on.
But yeah, so I think we do. I like the fact that you said we need to think about. We need to be approachable as parents, and that's a take-home message for all parents. I think we need to question: are we approachable? Are our children free to come and speak to us? Do they feel like they can speak to us, or we understand them, or do they think we're so old we're not going to understand? We need to make that effort to be more relatable to them and have those conversations.
Can
Somehow,
I add? Can
yeah,
I
go
add,
on.
Shabina? You might do all the right things as a parent or guardian to be approachable, but your child number 2, for example, seems to be the case universally, might feel, no, I think you're too old, you're beyond this, you're not going to understand it, I'm not opening up to you. As a parent or a guardian, then you cannot be offended by that.
No.
Yeah.
And this is crucial and important because it's not personal. It's just the fact that they're looking at things from their perspective, and to aid our children with the support that they need at this time when the world is developing technologically and advancing in ways that are making them more vulnerable, if for no other reason, if this is the reason that a parent or a guardian should think, okay, who does my child like? Who will my child be comfortable speaking to? And like you said, there might be a cousin who's an older cousin who I think is a good influence on my child. And therefore, I'm happy with this. There should be no offense. There should be no sulking in the corner. There
No.
should be no, well, forget that one, favoritism involved now, the below, or any of those factors. It's really important to hear that. So even mashallah, you recognize in this aspect, or any of us parents recognize in this. I'm sure the rest of us are in a similar boat with our kids. Is crucial to then move on to think who can help and support my child.
Yes.
And that's important. Is there anything else that you wanted to add on? Because I was going to say, Fazila, do you have anything to add
Sorry,
on to this?
I'm just listening to Rabina and laughing.
Yeah, I recognize the laugh. We all
Do
go
you?
through it.
No, I just think also I think Sabina, I think every child is different,
Yeah.
and our parenting has to be different to suit that child. So your eldest will be different, for example, and there might be a calmer personality, or they'll be more, talkable to, or but your number 2 might not be, and then we have to change our ways. Like I've
Yeah.
been through it with my own. All 4 of mine are different, and sometimes to change our approach, even though we may like it, to suit that child's personality and their mentality and their thought process. It's like we talk about when we talk to children, we go down onto their level, like
Yeah.
toddlers, for example. I think the same principle applies here, that we have to go to their level of thinking and understanding, us to be able to engage with them, because all of our children will be different. In a way. So that's what I was it was making me smile, that do we have to change our ways, I think.
Yeah, and it's really important as a parent to understand that the responsibility of parenting is to adapt.
Yeah.
There is no rest, and that might mean physical no rest for some parents.
And
With
also to discuss,
some
isn't it? Don't you
children,
think?
yeah, yeah,
I think it's one thing being approachable, but then do we give them the respect or the space to discuss with us their thoughts process, or do we shut them down? Because I remember with 1 or 2 of mine that they'll come and talk to me about something, and I was like, no, it has to be like this. Like I'll give them my. They're like, Mom, you don't even give me the chance to speak, like, or
yeah,
give my point of view, and sometimes they can be right and we can be wrong, or it can be the other, but they need that space to be able to their thoughts and opinions to us, isn't it, for us to understand where they're at. And then I think something that's developed, like going back to what I was saying before, it's bring change in ourselves as well, because we can be quite rigid in the way we parent. this is the correct way. And sometimes they just want to let off steam. And I think sometimes you have to give them that time to let that to do that, and then come back to it and deal with the issues, as it were. They don't always want to be
Yeah.
corrected there and
Advised.
then advised, or corrected there and then. They just want to let off that steam with you, and then maybe later you can revisit what they were saying and try and talk about it. And I think we have to. I think the thing is we have to. Well, mine are older now, but we have to be open for discussion. It's not a question of you do this, you do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. It doesn't work. And it shouldn't be like that. We should be molding our children to think and to discuss and to question, and not be zombies that follow blindly whatever somebody says, whether it's parents or friends or society. They should be able to question what's right and wrong, and be convinced of that as well. So it's our the onus is on us to if we're telling them something, to explain why it's like that, not because mum's saying it or dad's saying it, but where is our thought process coming from?
Mhm. And I think parenting's all about adaptability,
Yes.
and recognizing that it's okay. That if you're, for example, your youth doesn't necessarily open up with you, it's not personal, it's not let's take offense to this, but find the avenue that suits your
Mm,
youth to help them and aid them and support them. And they will recognize that my parents are supportive of this, or they put this in place, and the relationship then inshallah grows. And I think it's really important, as you're saying, Fazila, just once again to echo that, that it's really important to recognize the character and to work with the character, because we may not have the patience or the tolerance or the emotional strength to sit and listen to this issue, but it's an issue for that youth.
yeah.
And it's important to them and their character and their personality. And therefore, for their development, it's really important that we're there supporting them through their problem in their world, which is as big as their world. So it might be something that we
Mm.
can't even take seriously. We can't even fathom it as an issue, but for
And
them,
also,
it is an issue.
and also go back to what Shabina was saying, I think, she gave the example of her daughter going to her cousin. I
Mm,
think, Alhamdulillah, that she has got someone good to go to.
alhamdulillah.
And I think we shouldn't be feel insecure about these
Yeah,
things. I think we should surround our children with good people, or people that will
Yeah.
give them good advice, so that if they don't feel comfortable coming to a parent, that they've got other people to turn to.
Yeah.
mm,
Absolutely.
And there are times when we can't go to our parents, for example, so we have to be understanding of that. But inshallah, I like to think there are people out there that they know they can turn to, and then that will give them the correct advice.
Mm.
And who will also liaise with us in the background, like you said, Shabina, and we'll know what's going on, so we can monitor stuff. But
Mm.
inshallah, they're in safe hands. But I think a lot of the time what happens is, our children, there'll be children out there, or that don't have uh, good advice coming to them. So they'll go
yeah,
out to friends, or people in the community that will give them the wrong advice, or will point in the wrong direction, and they'll get in trouble. But then again, the onus is on us to see who are the people in our children's environment, who have they got around them that they could possibly go to, if there is a need. Like I always say, like mine, they know, for example, that they can't come to me. For example, they can go. I've got a few friends that they can go to, or for
mm,
example, there's a few family members that they can go to, and I say I'm more than happy for you to go to that person or that
mm,
person, and I'm at ease, inshallah, with that. And I think sometimes that's important, to let your children know that if there's something that you
yes,
can't talk to me
yeah.
about, you can talk to
X, Y, and Z.
X,
Yeah,
Y, and Z, and
yeah,
they should have
yeah,
that, because yeah.
yeah, yeah. And on that note, one more principle that's really important is the fact that we tackle this a lot in our shows as well, about the fact that it's natural for people to come together to support each other at times of need. In Islam, we talk about how we work in societies and communities. We don't work as individuals. And when you look to this message and this note, the whole proverb of how it takes a village to raise a child, you can't parent your children alone. And although we have a lot of Western taboo and pressure to be amazing parents all by ourselves and to have fantastic kids at the end of it, it's impossible to be able to do it alone. And it's not a failure that your child is someone who you're not able to speak to, and therefore then you're asking your brother-in-law, your sister, or your neighbor or your friend to say, can you just speak with so and so and see where they're at? They're not understanding this, they're making themselves vulnerable. It might not just be a social media platform. It could, stem into real life dangerous situations and circumstances that they find themselves in or vulnerable. And they need to know that there's a whole bank of people, like you're saying, Fazila, because it might not come naturally to the youth either about who they can speak to or who they can't, because they're still learning, they're still going through the experiences of life to gain that understanding. And that's why, as parenting, as far as parenting goes, adaptability is crucial. You have to be able to adapt to each child. I remember, many years ago, we've talked about this and we said each child is a case study. If each child is a case study, you have to understand the case study and immerse within it to be able to get a conclusion for it. And that adaptability is crucial. And what you're saying, Fazila, about thinking is so crucial as well, because like we're saying, we want our youth to question the social media platforms they're using and why they want to be in the atmosphere or the environment or rubbing shoulders with, even on social media, with particular type of people. It's crucial that the thinking stems within them in regards to everything. So even the people that, for example, you have a bank of that your kids can go to. And when I, for example, with Fazila, when we say kids, mashallah, they're all 18 plus now, they're adults. But that conversation that we have of this person, this person, this person, one of them might ask, but why only these people? And then there can be an explanation of why, because I feel that these people are sincere, they've got your best interest at heart, they'll come from an Islamic perspective, they'll give you a balanced out view and outcome, they've got a life experience of the outside world that we don't have. They may have a career in a background of something that gives them a bit more awareness of this. There may be different reasons. They won't all just be because they're Islamic, but rather they're good people that could come from different perspectives and angles and can advise you correctly, inshallah. And even then, the situation could go wrong for our youth or ourselves as parents or guardians that are trying to protect our youth and their vulnerability in a situation. And then that is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's where what you said, Fazila, comes right back into it again, where Muhammad was slandered, and Muhammad was abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, mentally abused, na'udhu billah. But Muhammad through his seerah and through the lives of the Sahaba and the Sahabiyat that were with Muhammad that surrounded him, such as Bilal radiallahu anhu, or Sumayya radiallahu anhu, Anha, should I say, they represent the characters and the role models of confidence, positivity, and people that stood tall at the time of that adversity to them. So there's one thing recognizing and understanding how to use the social media platforms, for example. And there's another thing having the correct mentality behind it and the correct ethics and the correct values that we're instilling within our children. We're living in a time of everything is a joke, everything is a laugh, everything is funny, but it might be incorrect from an Islamic ethical point of view. So it's not funny and it's not a joke anymore. So therefore, it's really important to reevaluate our values and at the same time then teach our children the confidence of standing tall if you are in the right and self-correcting and self-accounting if you have wronged, whether you've wronged another person by cyberbullying, blackmailing, or creating an issue in their life, or if you've wronged because you thought it was funny and you were just pranking and you were just doing a joke, which isn't from Islam. So as parents and guardians, there's lots of onus here. And like we said at the beginning of the show, the fact that governments are now taking this seriously shows how serious the nature of an issue these social media platforms really are for our youth. How the problem has escalated to another level. It will now be in every other household, and at least one person in your family somewhere or somehow may have unfortunately been exposed to some kind of bad through these platforms. So we really need to get a grip and we really need to start learning how we're going to handle this emotionally as well as practically, like you said, become a bit more maybe tech savvy and or maybe have a bit more conversations with our youth that are correct in building their character, their personality, as well as teaching them skills of how to differentiate and filter the use of these platforms. And the confidence of also say, I'm going social media platform free, and everybody else around you is still using it and they mock you in their group setting. How do you feel about that? Or the fact that you don't have a smartphone and they do. And finally, just because your child won't have a smartphone or be exposed to these social media platforms up to the age of 16 doesn't mean they're not going to be exposed to this vulnerability 16 plus. So these are important mechanisms that need to be taught, understood, learnt, and nurtured within ourselves and our youth, inshallah. And we've only got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that you two wanted to add, inshallah? No?
Not really, no.
Okay, I just wanted to finish off by saying that, it's really important that this brings us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think the take home message has to be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be present with you at all times as families. And that needs to be an environment that we always create. So when we are talking about, questioning the environments we're in and the platforms we're on, there's a connection made back. And even if the youth are wanting to do that, or we are not naturally doing that, the more we question, is Allah pleased with this? Is this the method I need to take? Is this morally correct? Is this ethically the correct way to be? And should I be a part of this or should I not be a part of this? The more we will create a better framework of understanding within ourselves and our family situations, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all our children from all types of vulnerabilities, be it in person or the social media platforms. I'd like to say Jazakallah khair to both of you for joining us today. I'd like to say Jazakallah khair to the listeners, and please do forgive us for any shortcomings or mistakes in today's show. And until next time, aquli qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah. Jazakallah khair and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.